Hey, folks, are you in sales? I'll tell you what, yes, you are, whether you think so or not. If you're a parent, if you are in or any type of relationship, you are in sales. Whether you had your cable person shut down your cable or give you a wrong deal, you're in sales and negotiation. So I'm here with Jimmy Z. Jimmy, how you doing?
I'm excellent, Kary. Great to be with you here today.
Oh, listen, I saw you resonating with that statement, but so you do agree that everyone's in sales.
Absolutely.
Wow.
Absolutely. It encompasses all aspects and relationships because that's really what sales is about. It's a relationship driven element, and people often misunderstand it because they're thinking somebody's trying to pull one over on them or selling. However,
Yeah.
in relationships, it's always building on connections with other people.
Yeah, even if it's like, "Hey, kids, where do you wanna go to dinner today?" Everyone starts working their sales game. "Hey, let's go here. Wait, we went there last time. Wait, I'm in the mood for this, and I'll trade you that if we do this." Right? It's
Well,
just
especially kids, they know how to negotiate, don't they?
wow, wow. Well, I think there's that, and of course, we've, known each other for a lot of years, but you know that I've always said, serving is selling.
Correct.
And, I don't think people mind sales if it's done with rapport and value driven relationships, not trying to get. So maybe you can talk to us. Why did you write this book? What is the book about?
Sure. So thanks for that. The idea behind sales and where my heart is, funny story. I started writing this book in general before I came to you, before I got connected
Are
with
you
Igniting
serious?
Souls. So it was an idea that started. And when I presented the idea, I have this idea on sales. I also have this idea on mentorship. And I got, hey, listen, we love this is fine, but we really like this mentorship book. So I wrote Peak Perspective that came out in 2018,
I remember
end of
that.
that year. And that's a book about how to build your own personal board of directors. But this book on sales has always been part of my heart simply because I realized that in my career, I've been in selling and in sales, worked with my dad in business for a long time. And I realized over my career that selling is not about transactions, it's really about relationships.
Mm,
But so many people, when they start with a transaction language, people get defensive because are you trying to sell me something? And you haven't even found out what it is I'm looking for. And so this is a fresh approach on the process of sales. I don't even, funny thing on the back cover, I say, stop trying to close a sale.
mm.
You don't walk into an opportunity by trying to close the deal. You do it by trying to build the bridge of influence, trying to
Oh, that's
connect with
good.
somebody. And
That's
when you
good.
do that, that's the way I describe rapport. It's the connection. I have 5 C's of every sales experience, and
Mm,
the methodology that I use and building the bridge of influence helps me take my eyes off myself, what my agenda or my sales strategy is, find out what the other person needs, and learn from them so that they invite whatever value I may potentially bring to them
mm.
versus me shoving it at them. In that transaction mindset, when I set it aside and people realize I'm there for them, amazing things happen. Relationships are built. And in that process, I wrote this book because I wanted to share a framework that's really made such a great difference in my life about, first of all, identifying what does every customer really want.
Mm.
That's the big picture. And you deliver value, service, and trust. Those three things drive
Values.
that: value, service, and trust. Value the person, value their business, value the problem they're trying to solve. And when I do that, and I serve them in the same
Mm.
capacity, and then I deliver on the problem that they're trying to solve, you know what they do? They say, hey, Jimmy, let's do this. And they invite me to come back and help them with other things. And it has opened the door to do that. But the secret to that, it's kind of like James Clear talks about in Atomic Habits. You have the framework, the overarching idea, and then what's the process? And the
Mm.
process for me, the system I built, I call this the system that makes the framework work, is the 5 C's of every sales experience.
That's good. That's
And
good.
it's not the transaction, it's the experience. And so if I'm thinking that way, it starts to change the mentality of what I bring to the table with curiosity, with enthusiasm, with excitement, and with sincere interest in what someone else is trying to accomplish. Because more
That's
often than not, they have a problem and they're trying to solve that.
That's so good. Well, obviously you're good at speaking too. How important is it to speak while you're selling? In other words, we said everyone's in sales, but really is everybody in speaking too? And how do the two work together when you go through a presentation? Because look, I can see you right here. And even if you're not having a call to action at the end of your quote speech, speaking is selling. What do you think about that?
It's totally true because it's a communication mechanism that allows for transaction, understanding, allowing the whatever the need is to be uncovered and
Mm,
found out. So clarity, I mean, you taught me this a long time ago. Clarity attracts, confusion repels, right? I even
mm,
quote you in this book with
mm.
that very quote. And I take that concept and go deeper in understanding. I could tell you 5 stories that would blow your mind or help you understand it. But why do I need 5 stories? What I really need to think about is, what is the one story that would resonate with you? So clarity, instead of all this information, what's the one story that resonates with you that helps you see the value that could potentially solve the problem you're trying to solve?
Oh, that's
So
good.
when
That's
you
good.
communicate, yes, speaking and presenting with clarity is important. As a matter of fact, that's the number 3 out of the 5 C's is clarity. I could tell you a lot, but what's important and what really helped me understand that, Kary, was this. For years, I would go into sales meetings with clients and customers, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, what do I have to say? What's on the agenda? What are we going to
Yeah.
accomplish? And when I backed that off, I start to remind myself before I get out of my car and go
Mm,
through the door that what I have to say is not as important as what they need to hear.
that's so good. That's so good. I think you're onto something because when I first quote went from pastor to whatever I am now, an entrepreneur, I guess, um, a lot of fear. Oh my gosh, I just pulled up to this person's office and I better make the sale. And why should I make the sale? Because I got 3 kids and a wife, and you know, we need this sale. Look at what I'm focused on. Me, 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 me. And
Totally.
then what? I'm supposed to go in there and sell? No way. So I remember, Jimmy, the first sales pitch that I gave, I was a John Maxwell certified guy. I brought in like 6 binders of John Maxwell and I came in and I'm all nervous, freaking out. And, I'm trying to lead a whiteboard thing to try to get the deal. And it went bad and they didn't hire me. And I went back to my friend Chet Scott, and he's like, this guy doesn't mince words, so he kind of cussed me up and down, and he's like, "What are you thinking?" He's like, "You don't need anything. You just need to go in there with a piece of paper and listen." And I mean, that's what it became then. It became me going in there and saying, I'm just going to be massively curious and find out what they need. And it's kind of going off script. And I feel like your 5 C's are really a guide to help us go off script. So we don't need a sales pitch. What do you think?
Right. I think that's totally true. More often than not in sales, we find ourselves defaulting to telling and we forget about asking.
Mm,
It's separating the two. And when I go in to find out with somebody else, I love the idea of curiosity. Yes, it's used a lot in sales and you find out about them, but sincerely
yeah.
find out about them. If I start telling you everything I do, there's no connection. If I
Yeah.
want to build a connection, I need to ask. So
That's right.
less of me, more of them. And when that happens, and I found in my career that when I set my eyes, my words, my intention on what someone else's issues are and learn
Mm,
about them and become curious about them, I find myself welcome everywhere I go because they know I'm there for
mm.
them. And I
What
talk about that as kind of the
That's good.
outcome. One of the outcomes is being welcome anywhere. It's because, I mean, when I go to places, I had a boss travel with me a number of months ago, and we walk in the room and people are going, Jimmy Z is in the house, because they know that I am there for them, to serve them. And he gets to kind of listen on that. And people sometimes come up. I'm not looking for hugs, but people will come up and hug me. So thank you for being here. I really appreciated it,
Wow.
because I might have been the first person in a sales role that listened to them in a long time,
Mm,
because I was
that's
asking
good.
questions,
That's
not
good.
telling them stuff.
That is so good. One of my coaches, Dan Sullivan, he tells a story about somebody saying, how I want to get on Dan's calendar to see if I should join his program. Big expensive program. See if I should join. And this was back before Dan was really big, so he actually took the meeting, and he said, "Yeah, we'll do 30 minutes." So he got on, and after the 28th minute, of the other guy talking, Dan says, "So what do you think?" He's like, "I'm in." And Dan's like, "You're in?" He's like, "I'm in." He's like, "Well, why are you in?" "Well, I think it's a great program." "Well, why is it a great program?" "Well, because you focus on the client, me, and my questions rather than the agenda." I mean, so like 28 minutes of a sales pitch, and Dan probably said 10 words, but the guy bought. What do you think about that? Is that your book in a nutshell?
In a nutshell, in so many components, people don't even realize what hit them when they have a listening ear. How many times you've been in a conversation where you ask someone a question and they pour out their heart to you, and they never ask you a question about what's going on in your life?
Mm,
On a sales side, you can go in and find out, ask one question and listen. And there's a great strategy about asking additional questions. One
mm.
question leads to another. Tell me more about that.
Well,
How
that's
did you
good.
get started in this business? And asking simple, additional probing questions to gather information. And suddenly you find yourself hearing their whole story. I've had people say, I've never told this to anybody before. And this is the first time I've
Ooh,
met them. And it's because I was willing to show sincere interest in what was most important to them.
that's powerful. That's powerful. I could see that. I could see you doing that. I think Toyota had this thing, people can Google it, but it's the 5 whys. I don't know if you ever heard that, but Toyota was famous for like their efficiency and quality control and all this. And it was because they didn't stop at the first why. So
Mm.
if something was broke on the line, they didn't say, "Well, why?" They said, when the answer was given, they said, "Why?" And they went 5 levels deep, and they got exactly what you're saying. They got to the granular level of why something wasn't working rather than, "Oh, I'll just assume." How many times, Jimmy Z, do we hear in a sales conversation something and then we just go off on running, but we didn't really uncover it?
It's unfortunate, but it's true. It's like a stone skipping off the water. I got a sense of what's happening, but I skipped on to the next element. And for me, it's like, okay, I have my answer because it checked off a box on my agenda, but I really missed the point. I missed what they were trying to do because I didn't go dig any deeper. I didn't
Mm,
stop and say, tell me more about that.
yeah.
I'm really curious as to how you got started in this business. That question alone has opened up many doors, because people love to tell their origin story
Mm,
when they're in business or they're trying to accomplish something. And when you ask questions, again, it's back to asking, not telling. The quicker we are to ask and the slower we are to tell anything,
mm.
the greater the connection.
It's so good. Folks, we're looking at the sales perspective. I love the subtitle, Shift Your Mindset, Ignite Your Sales Potential, Stand Out from the Crowd, Stop Trying to Close the Sale. Without a connection, there's no relationship. I mean, I'm a faith person. Even go back to Jesus. How many times could Jesus just have gone in for the sale? You know, you want to be my disciple? Here's what you do. Boom, 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 boom. Instead, he took care. He saw the person. He saw the person. And then at times they're in and he didn't even want him to be in. You know, like, I'll follow you wherever you go. Well, hold on. You should do this first. So can it be that powerful, Jimmy Z, that if you really see people, would you say those three things were about trust and value and stuff?
Right. It's the three factors of the essential selling perspective. So what the customer really wants is value, service, and trust. But I need to take that into not just valuing the problem, but what if I value the person, the business owner, how they got started, what their story is, what their motivations are, what their family's like, why are they in this business? And then carry that to the next factor, which is I value your business. Wow, this industry and the way you're making your mark in this industry, you're really up and coming. You're really making a difference. Tell me how you're making a difference. What are the things you're doing differently? And I take that. Now, are there any challenges that you're facing that are prohibiting you from going to the next level? And now we might cover a problem. But I value those three things. And then I take the next level once they disclose their problem to me and say, now I'm going to serve you. I'm going to serve your team that's going to deliver on solving this issue. And they're doing a great job. And then the people assigned specifically to the problem, I'm going to serve them. So when we come back, and then trust is built by doing those things in those three capacities, where now they trust me, their team trusts me, and the people that I'm actually working with on solving the problem trust me to be a solution provider. Now I've added value on many levels, not just the one transaction level. And then they'll say, listen, let's do that again, or I'll get a referral or an opportunity to serve them in many capacities. And so it takes some of what you talked about with the selling is serving mentality. If I'm there to serve you, not myself, people actually recognize what I'm actually there to do, which is to help them.
But see, this is, and I'll tell you what, in our world today, where smartphones are everywhere, you have to be so on your game. And what I mean by this is, we'll get little snippets of a celebrity walking by a kid who's just overcome cancer, stooping down to talk to them, hear them. I mean, I don't know why I get these things going on my Instagram or my phone or whatever, but not recommending Kurt Cobain. But the other day, the dude's been dead for so many years, but somebody caught a clip where he stopped. You know, he was smoking and who knows, high or whatever, but he stopped and a fan, his kid was there and his kid was unhealthy, and he stopped and he spent time with him and he gave him drumsticks. And like, the dude's been dead for decades, but somebody posted that because of this unique moment. And I'm not saying he's perfect. Of course he's not. But then you hear the other clips where a celebrity's too busy, walks by somebody. And I mean, that can take down a whole brand that took 20 years to build because they just, you know, walked by somebody. So talk to us today about how, I guess what I'm trying to say is the message of your book, in my opinion, it's more urgent today than ever before, sales perspective. So talk about today's technology and world that we're in and why this message is even more important.
Well, technology is being utilized in many ways, in some ways to replace certain aspects of sales, replace certain aspects of connection and communication with people. Yet the reality of it is, I remember my dad told me many, many years ago, and I tell stories. He's been gone now for a number of years, but I tell stories about the lessons my dad taught me growing up when I was working for him. And he said, Jimmy, life's a people business. You got to figure out how to work well and get along with others, even when you may disagree. And of course, the other thing that resonates in my head is one of my favorite quotes from Dale Carnegie. You must have a good time meeting people if you expect them to have a good time meeting you. In
Wow.
other words, the importance of people is real. It's not going to replace, AI is not going to replace people, but life is a people business. And so in that process of the example you use of stopping and recognizing we're in the world filled with people, there's a bunch of machines and mechanisms that help
Yeah.
us be more efficient. But the reality of it is, in sales, people like to do business with people.
That's good. That's good. I once met a couple dudes in seminary when I was training to be a pastor. And one of them turned to me one time and he said, "You know what? I'd be an awesome pastor if it wasn't for people." And I'm like, you know what I'm saying?
Ouch.
You know,
Yeah.
like no, he didn't say it to me. He said about himself.
Yeah. No,
Like
I get that.
in other words, the guy was like, just it's the people that drive me nuts. And I mean, there's a case of a guy who probably shouldn't be a pastor if he's thinking that people are the problem. I mean, I think that the greatest leaders, whether they were generals or Jesus himself, I mean, he took the opportunity in crisis moments. In fact, I was mentored by this guy named Dr. Plaster, and he would always like step into leadership when a crisis was happening.
Mhm.
And I thought to myself, man, doesn't this guy get like, you know, really burn out from it? And he said, Kary, never waste a good crisis. And I was like, what? But he saw a crisis as an opportunity to
Mhm.
go in and earn your three things that you just said.
Right.
Say those again.
Value, service, and trust.
So he saw crisis as a massive opportunity to go and gain those three by serving. And then obviously once he did that, he had the rapport that you talk about to then get the sale when it was time to lead the group of people in a new direction.
Right. When you think about challenges as opportunities versus just a roadblock, your mindset, your attitude, the way you engage with people changes because you see the opportunity that's before us in rallying people to a cause of accomplishing or solving a problem that's before us, whether it's a crisis. And we can define a crisis to ourselves, but what seems to be simple but can be a crisis to someone we're looking to work with or add value to, we have to recognize their definitions more than our definitions.
Wow.
And that's asking more than telling.
What do you think? What do you hope happens with this book? Because I know you wrote the first one a bunch of years ago. It's a fantastic book in and of itself. And tell us again the name of that first book.
The first book is called Peak Perspective.
Mm-hmm.
It's how to develop your personal board of directors. And
I remember that.
in that process, for me, I've had my personal board for 16 years. And it's still the most requested topic I talk about.
Really?
How to invite influence in your life. But I believe the sales book on another level, in back to my experience in construction and manufacturing and insurance and financial services over my career, that those organizations that have sales structures are always looking for a fresh perspective or an edge or another way to approach the grind of, here's your goal. It's January. Here's your goals for the new year. Go get them. And if I'm running around with my goals in my head, guess what I don't realize? The people I'm calling on recognize my focus is on me, not on them.
Right. That's right.
So if I shift that, I expect this book, and I'd like to be able to add value to people in some amazing ways. I've already done some keynotes on this and I want to keep speaking. And that's really what's driven me to write. And of course, Peak Perspective has now become a 5 to 7 book series on perspective and more things to come. And that really just fires me up about
So good.
serving and adding value.
Well, we all know when somebody's quote selling us, they're not even listening. And I feel like your book is So important. I like World War II history for some odd reason. To me, it was like I love studying the leaders.
Hmm.
And I just recently saw one on Churchill. And Churchill's a guy who was in sales. I mean, you gotta encourage the nation to keep going when they're being bombed. And I think he put a lot of what you just said into practice in those things, and he emerged as a very powerful leader, but it was because of sales, but because of serving. So Jimmy Z, I've heard you speak. I've invited you to my stage many times. You're one of the trusted people that we've, shared our virtual stage with to help other people with their book launches. So the whole Igniting Souls team is really behind this book. We're behind you. What if people say, I want to bring Jimmy Z to my people because I know he's going to share a new perspective? What do they click on this? Maybe speaking here?
Mm-hmm. Speaking or up above, there's a spot to book Jimmy Z, or down at the bottom.
Yeah,
Um, maybe
perfect.
I see what page you're on here. Maybe it's down at the bottom. You can connect or contact me. My
Sure.
phone number is at the top as well. And
That's crazy.
yeah, I know. I'm not afraid to pick up the phone, call me. Let's talk.
I
Um,
love it. I love it. Well, this has been fantastic. I know you have a great team. You have a great wife from Minnesota,
correct.
and travels and does talks on speaking and adding value to others. So, Jimmy Z, we're really proud of you. We're proud of this book, and you've already added value to our lives too. So, folks, I'm going to ask you to tag somebody who needs this book. Remember, you're all in sales, whether you're a pastor, whether you're a entrepreneur, teacher, parent, and Jimmy Z's given us some great value today. So, thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me, Kary. It's been a real pleasure serving alongside you and joining in this conversation today.
All right, folks, get your book today. Take care. We'll see you.